Hey y'all, I'm Mesa and welcome back to my channel. Today we will be discussing A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. This is the fourth book in the ACOTAR series, aka A Court of Thorns and Roses. I'm going to be giving a few disclaimers. One, this is a big book, aka I'm not going to be discussing everything that happens, just the important parts or the parts that I found important. Second disclaimer, I am most likely going to be mispronouncing so many names. I'm talking full out butchering. I'm talking pronouncing it differently every single time. Cassian, Rhysand. I also want to give out a trigger warning. This book does discuss the topics of trauma, sexual assault, rape, violence, and I will also be discussing those topics in this book talk. One last thing I want to add before we get into the spoiler section. This is a character-driven book, not a plot-driven book, so it feels a lot more different than the other three, in my opinion. I will also be mentioning one Kingdom of Ash spoiler from the Throne of Glass series, so if you haven't read that book or that series, also be warned. So if you have not read this book or the ACOTAR series, leave. I'll wait. Are you gone? All right, everyone who's read this book, let's talk. So the book opens up with a prologue. We are seeing the cauldron scene from the second book through Nesta's point of view, and it's horrible. She's being ripped of her humanity to be turned into a fae, but we also see her take away power from the cauldron. We are now back in the present time, and Nesta is just a wreck, both physically and mentally. Her face is super thin and pale, her waist is super thin, basically just telling us that she's not eating properly, she's over drinking, she's partying, and every night she's sleeping with random people, and this is how she's dealing with her PTSD from the war with Hybern. And she can't stand the crack of a fire. Cassian was instructed to retrieve her and bring her to Feyre and Rhysand's new house. So Nesta goes to see Feyre, and it's a whole intervention moment with Rhysand and Amren present, along with Cassian who brought her there. Basically what happens is they tell Nesta that she is to move to the House of Wind and train with Cassian every day in Windhaven. And then after her training, she will work in the library, which is under the house. And they tell her that her partying days are over. This is Nesta's rehab, and she's not given any other choice besides moving back to the human lands, which Nesta's not going to do because there's nothing there for her. In this same scene, we learn that the prologue that we just read is Nesta's occurring nightmare that she has almost nightly. We're now with Cassian, and he's in a meeting with Rhysand. And in this meeting, we learn that the Ilrain Rebellion that seemed very, very prevalent and dangerous, which was talked about in A Court of Frost and Starlight, is just gone. In the novella, it seemed as though like that's what this book was going to be about, that the Ilrain Rebellion was going to be very, very prevalent, because Sarah seemed to make a very, very big like deal out of it. But then we find out in like the first 100 pages that it's gone, it's been dealt with. That seemed a little bit too easy to me. Like, Also, we learn what the Bone Craver told Cassian about Nesta. How an island across the sea shuddered in fear when Nesta emerged from the cauldron. And that she took something really precious. Basically, like, what the fuck did Nesta steal and what are her powers? Because they sounded real dangerous, like real powerful, real dangerous. In this conversation, we learn that Rhys is trying to prevent a war. He tells Cassian that Cassian needs to take the role as a courtier to get information on the human queens, which they believe are scheming again. And Cassian's first step in doing this will be meeting with Jurian and Vassa. So now Cassian and Nesta are at the House of Winds. And throughout the book, Sarah gives us glimpses of Nesta's PTSD. Her thoughts can be on something completely mundane, but then they spiral into these horrible thoughts and she's thrown back into flashbacks. In her first night at the house, she's literally thinking about how everyone she cared for is going to be used against her. And then her thoughts start spiraling more, and how she could only save Cassian and not the 1,000 other Illyrian soldiers. It's a lot, and it was really heartbreaking to read and realize like that she goes through this every night. So fast forward a little bit, and Cassian is meeting with Vasa, Durin, and Lucian. But guess who else is there? Eris. And let's just be completely honest, Cassian is not good at negotiating or just talking in general, and yeah. Like, he shows all of his emotions on his face. During this meeting, though, we learn that Eris's soldiers are missing and without a trace. Like, we don't know where the hell they are. And Eris wants to know why his soldiers are missing. Later, when they're leaving and it's just him and Cassian, Eris tells Cassian that his father has aligned himself with Brylin, one of the human queens. The old one, the one that fucking hates Nesta. Those soldiers who vanished accompanied Eris's father when he went to the Human Queen's palace, and he describes that they came back really off. And then soon they just disappeared. They also believe that the sorcerer, Koski, is backing up Brylin. Koski, the sorcerer who has Vasa trapped as a big bird. Firebird. Luckily, he's confined to his lake because that dude is powerful and it'd be really bad if he wasn't confined to the lake. Now we get to one of my favorite reoccurring scenes, the 10,000 steps of the house. Those steps are the only way that Nesta can get back to the city where she can get drunk and party all she wants. The first time she goes down, she only makes it to like 111 steps before she had to turn back around. And during these recurring scenes where she's going down the steps, she's usually going down the steps because she had a nightmare or a flashback, and she's so used to drinking and partying and sex to distract her from it. Fast forward, Nesta is in the library and she's assisting the priestesses, which is basically just like her like putting books up for them. And we meet a new character, and one of my favorites, Gwen! Gwen is an acolyte, and she dumps books onto Nesta's cart and tells Nesta to shelf them. Nesta bites back that she doesn't work for acolytes, and then Gwen's like, well, you work for all of us because you work in the library. And right when Gwen like did a little like, you know, she wasn't afraid of like talking back to Nesta, I was like, I like this girl. I really like her. She just gave me the vibe. Nesta is again having a nightmare, and she's remembering her father in the cauldron, so she goes to take the steps again. On this particular attempt down, she falls. And to stop herself from falling, she blindly flies her hand out to the wall and sparks start flying. But she stops her fall. Her fingers were literally embedded into the stone. And she snatches her hand back, but her fingerprints are still there on the wall. This is the first time we see her silver flames. Up to this point in the book, Nesta has refused to train with Cassian at Windhaven, and it's really fucking pissing Cassian off. And it's not until he realizes that Nesta is a really proud person, and she will not train in front of Ilrine males who will be constantly judging her 24/7. So instead of taking her to the village, he takes her to the training ring on top of the house, and he makes a bargain with her. If she trains with him for 1 hour right then, he'll owe her any favor of whatever size she wants. They agree, and an 8-pointed star tattoo appears on his spine, and there's a matching one on Nesta's spine. So we're finally at our first sexy scene. Nesta's masturbating, and she is imagining that her hand is Cassian's hand because the two almost kissed and she pulled away, and I guess there was just like so much sexual tension that she had to go finish herself, which honestly I love that. But I shit you not, the funniest part about this scene was that she tells the house to come back at dawn. She didn't want the house to be there while she wanted her privacy. And her and the house have formed this relationship. The house brings her food and books, specifically smutty books. Get ready for name butchering. So we heard about the blood rite before in the previous books, but now Cassian explains it further to Nesta. When an Ilran warrior comes to his full strength, he must go through the blood rite to qualify to be a warrior and an adult. So basically what they do is they scatter all the warriors across the Illyrian mountains, and they are left for a week with 2 objectives: survival and making it to Ramiel. Ramiel is their sacred mountain. The males are drugged and dumped there with nothing but their clothes, and they can't leave until the rite is over or they have reached the peak of Ramiel. A spell is placed over so their wings and magic don't work, and weapons brought from the outside are banned. And on top of that, there are horrible, scary monsters that live in the mountains that they need to think about or they will die. This sounds like fucking shit. The blood rite always takes place when their three holy stars, Arctos, Corinth, and Orestes, shine above the mountains. And on the last day of the rite, all three stars are directly above the peak. After the rite, the males are put into ranks: Arctosian, the ones who didn't make it to the mountain but survived; Orestian, the ones who made it to the mountain but not the peak; and Corinthian, the ones who scaled the summit and are considered elite warriors. And they touched the stone on top of Ramiel, and that's how you win the whole damn thing. Only 6 males, including Rhys, Cassian, and Azriel, became Carthian over the last 5 centuries. So after 5 goddamn centuries, only 6 of them were able to reach the peak. Also, no one can pull a warrior out of the rite, or the warrior that got pulled out and the person who pulled them out will be hunted and executed. And Cassian basically explains to Nesta that it's almost impossible for a female Illyrian to be seen as a true warrior because she would need to have survived the blood rite, or else none of the males would respect her or fly with her. So an important part that we learn about Nesta is that she really does not like Feyre. Oh my fucking god, does not like Feyre. There is a quote, and I shit you not, where she literally is just like, how do I explain the self-loathing I feel toward Feyre? And I'm like, okay. Like, she feels self-loathing every time she sees Feyre's face. And to add on top of this already complicated situation between the sisters, we add Elain, who in Nesta's eyes has chose Feyre over her. And Nesta is very self-aware and realizes and acknowledges to herself that Feyre saved Elain multiple times over and over again throughout their lives, while Nesta just sat back and always offered hurtful words. We finally get to the first sexy scene between Cassian and Nesta. Chapter 19. Where basically they're just like grinding against the wall, clothes fully on, just like rubbing. Cassian finishes quickly, and Nesta misreads his facial expressions to believe that he regretted the little thing that they just did. So she quickly brushes him off so that he doesn't have any power over her, and says, someone's quick off the mark. But the thing is, Cassian didn't regret being with her. He didn't regret doing that. The only thing he regretted was not making her finish too. The miscommunication is just... We now get to the point in the book where one of the main plot points takes off. The Dread Troves. We're in a meeting with Rhysand, Feyre, Nesta, Amarin, and Cassian, and Azriel, talking about what Azriel had just discovered. He finds out that Brylan isn't just working with Koschei, they're allies, and the sorcerer has been whispering in her ear and pointing her in the direction of the Dread Troves, which they believe he wishes to use himself to free himself from the lake. The Dread Troves are cauldron-made objects with insane amounts of power. Legend only speaks of 3 existing: the mask, the crown, and the harp. The mask can raise the fucking dead, and you can command the dead to your will. The harp can open up any door, physical or otherwise. Some even say it opens between worlds. And the crown can influence anyone. Doesn't matter what protective shields they have. You just have to be within close proximity of the crown. So bad shit if any of these Dread Troves fall into the hands of the Human Queen. A little drama happens when Elain offers herself to go find the Dread Troves because she is cauldron made, and like calls to like. And Nesta is up in arms about it. She turns to Feyre and demands why she doesn't go find the Dread Troves, because she's the trained warrior. And at this moment, Feyre drops a big ass fucking bomb on us and the Inner Circle gang. She's pregnant. I was so fucking happy. Like, the excitement that Cassian, Azriel, and Amren were showing, I was feeling those exact emotions. I was so happy that Feyre and Rhysand were gonna have a little baby. So because of this, Feyre obviously can't do it. She's preggers. Nesta won't allow Elaine to do it because she's really overprotective. So Nesta agrees to find the troves. And she wants to do it her own way before she has to try scrying. Kaz and Azriel are talking about children, which leads to Cassian's thoughts about how he wants kids, and deep down he's waiting for a mating bond, and he wants what Rhysand and Feyre have. Made me really sad. But in all of these thoughts about kids, mating bonds, all this, he can't stop thinking about Nesta. So he leaves, goes to her room, and evens out the playing field, aka he eats her out. Chapter 22. Y'all remember how, like, during a live, Sarah discussed that there was a threesome scene in the book that was cut out? Well, when Kaz and Azriel were sparring with each other to show Nesta what she's up against, this bitch, I shit you not, started fantasizing about both of them taking her, Cassian in the front, Azriel in the back. And I personally did not like this, not because of the threesome thing, but because in my mind, Cassian and Azriel are like blood brothers. So immediately I was just like, when did this turn to fucking Game of Thrones incest motherfucking shit? Like, I know they're not like biological brothers, but in my mind I was like, incest? I swear to God, if that was a scene that Sarah got, I don't feel like Cassian and Azriel's relationship is like that, but it was a short little thing. I just thought it was funny. Fast forward, and Nesta has a great plan to offer the priestesses to join her and Cassian during training so they can learn to defend themselves. So she puts up a sign-up sheet in the library. The only problem is the priestesses do not feel comfortable around men and would straight up not feel comfortable with Cassian there. Or they just wouldn't feel comfortable leaving the library. All of the priestesses are there because horrible things have happened to them. So the sign-up sheet remains blank. But Nesta is crafty though. She's practicing her training moves down in the library. Clotho, the priestess in charge, calls on Cassian to come down and make her stop because Nesta has not been listening to her. But when he gets to where Nesta's at, he sees a glimpse of who she was before the war. And so he doesn't stop her. Instead, he instructs her and has her do more moves. When he's done and he's about to leave, he notices that there were priestesses watching them. Nesta gave them all a demonstration of what she had learned with Cassian and how good she had gotten. And she did this in hopes that they would be inspired to join. But another aspect of Nesta that we learn is that she's constantly battling this negative view of herself, specifically seeing herself as a failure. She believes that she has failed in every aspect of her life, and she purposely pushes people away so that they will not see her failures. And all of these thoughts come about because the sign-up sheet still remains blank, even after her demonstration. She comes into work and she does not have the heart to look at the blank sign-up sheet until Clotho points at the sign-up sheet. And written in bold letters is Gwen's name. I was so happy. Gwen tells Nesta the reason why she signed up is because she never wants to feel powerless again. We are now almost 300 pages in, and Nesta is in Emery's shop in Windhaven. She's there while Cassian is meeting with Eris. During the two girls' conversations, Nesta gets flashbacks to her grandma, who used to beat her palms raw if she did missteps in her dance practices. In the same scene, Nesta gets flashbacks to this guy named Thomas. Thomas was a man she was in a relationship with, who she was engaged to, and who she was ready to give her body over in order to keep Elaine from starving. But Feyre had came back with the food and then immediately vanished over the wall. So she broke things off with Thomas, and he launched himself at her, trying to rape her. And only out of pure terror and survival instincts does she bite his ear and rips it. And that was how she was able to get away. We are back at the house in the dining room, and Cassian is feeling hurt because of the insults that Eris threw at him. Eris has an amazing talent of making people feel like absolute shit, and Nesta wanted to do anything she could to get the self-loathing and sorrow look off of his face. So what does she do? She gives him a blowjob. Chapter 26. And it's looking like they're gonna go a little bit further than just oral sex before Azriel comes in. He made fucking noises to warn them that he was coming. What a cockblock. He knew what he was interrupting, and honestly, he was taking his chaperone skills a little bit too goddamn seriously. Nesta had invited Emery to come train with them as well. And Emery is very hesitant, and she gives a bunch of excuses why she can't train with them. Emery is an Elrain female, and her wings have been clipped so she cannot fly. But she comes, and now she's training too. And then a few pages later, 3 more priestesses join the training. So at this point, all of Nesta's methods to try to find the dread troves haven't worked, so she's gonna try scrying. And just for clarification, if you forgot about this, but in the 3rd book, scrying is basically the method of finding something, and it's done by holding bones and stones in your hands and dropping it over a map. And wherever they fall, that's where it is. And she was inspired by the priestesses who haven't left the library in years to do this, because if she was asking them to be brave and face their fears, she needed to do the same thing. So she attempts scrying with only Cassian there, and it fails. She fails because she's remembering the first time she did this and what she saw when they were trying to have her find the cauldron. She's remembering the king of Hybern and the cauldron, and it's all just too much for her. The scrying triggers her so much that she's laying in bed and she feels the cauldron's darkness pinning her down, and she's dreaming that she is being pushed back into the cauldron. Cassian feels that something is wrong, so him and Azriel book it to her room, and they find her body fully engulfed in silver flames. But the fire was cold, not warm. And then Nesta starts shouting, "No, no, no." And the windows in the room blow out, and as Nesta is about to erupt her silver flames, Rhysand out of fucking nowhere is there, and he smolders her fire with his darkness. Rhys is shouting at Nesta, telling her it's just a dream and to wake up. Cassian goes over to her, says her name, and her flame kind of wavers a little bit, enough where Rhysand is able to control her flames and get into her mind. Rhys says that that is only the surface of Nesta's powers. And then Azriel asks, what exactly is Nesta's power? And with fear in his face, Rhysand says, pure death. That is her power. Pure fucking death. The next day, the Bat Boys are together, and Rhysand tells them that his baby has wings. And that the reason the baby has wings because he was conceived when Feyre was in her Elrain form, but now she's currently not. And the healer has forbid Feyre to alter her body in any way because it can put the baby at high risk. The reason why it's bad that the baby has wings is because Feyre's pelvis is not equipped to giving birth to wings. The wings can get stuck during labor. Most of the moms die, and so do the babies. And there's no magic to help, which I was kind of like, what the fuck? They haven't told Feyre this because Rhysand doesn't want to scare her, but Rhysand's terrified as fuck, and he's trying to find a way to save her. And so Cassian does the only thing that he knows to do, which is offer to spar with Rhys so that he can get out some of his frustrations. So he comes back to the house limping, and Nesta asks him what the fuck's up, and Cassian tells her. When she learns about this, she decides to try to scry again, because if her nephew is to survive, she does not want him to be born into a world once more at war. She doesn't say any of this out loud, she just says it to herself, but still, my heart was so happy that, like, she was just thinking about that, and So Nesta does scry again, but now instead of just Cassian being there, Rhysand, Amren, and Feyre are there as well. She's once again caught up in the moment, and her power lightly blares out and silver flames are in her eyes. Cassian has to kiss her in order for her to drop the stones and the bones on the map. And when she does, they land on the Borg of Orid, which is in the middle. What's also in the middle? The Under the Mountain. The bog is where the mask is at. And they can't get a more detailed map of the middle because it's illegal to have a detailed map of the middle. So they just have to go to the bog and try to find it. So they decide that the next morning that Nesta, Cassian, and Azriel will go to the bog to find the mask. So they winnowed to the bog, and right away the descriptions easily tell us that it's an evil place. The land is a wasteland, everything is fucking gray, the air feels oppressive, the trees are all dead, and it's silent. And there's a lake where water burials were once performed. The whole bog just feels off as fuck. So we learn about a cute little creature called the Kelpie. Little natives of the bog. They used to live in the bog. The Kelpie are ancient creatures that are shapeshifters that once dwelled in the lake and lured people in. So they're flying around trying to look for the mask when all of a sudden Azriel gets shot down by the missing Autumn Court soldiers. What the fuck are they doing there? Cassian places Nesta on a tree before he goes back to Azriel and starts killing all the soldiers left and right. The soldiers who are fighting them. It's been a little while and Nesta's worried as shit for Cassian. Worried that he's either hurt or dying. And she can't wait anymore, so she climbs down the tree. In order to get where she believes Cassian and Azriel are, she has to swim across the fucking lake. But guess what the fuck happens? That's right, a fucking Kelpie appears. You know, the ones that aren't supposed to be alive, pops out of the fucking water and drags Nesta under. Man, it's so nasty looking too, like the descriptions. Like, it's whiter than bone and it has a humanoid form. It's male. It has obsidian hair and its eyes are fucking huge. Cheekbones are hella sharp. Its mouth is too large and there are 2 twin rows of razor sharp teeth. Its body is slim and tall and its fingers are super long with dagger sharp nails. Back to Cassian and Azriel. They dealt with the soldiers and kept 2 alive for questioning, but the soldiers were acting really strange, weren't speaking, and seemed to be unfocused and blank. Something's wrong with them. Cassian and Azriel go back to where he left her, and she ain't there. No, she's not there. Instead, she's being dragged underwater by a fucking Kelpie. The Kelpie is keeping her alive by breathing air into her lungs via a kiss, and Nesta, desperately trying to save herself, tries to call on her powers, her silver flames. Her flames don't answer, but the mask does. She slams the mask onto her face, and she summons the dead that are in the lake to kill the Kelpie. When Nesta put on the mask, she was death herself. When she was wearing the mask, she felt nothing. No emotions, completely lacking feelings. And the scary part is she felt good being removed from her emotions, which just shows how severe her trauma is. After that event, Nesta is bathing in a sunken bathing pool, and she's just thinking to herself like how much power she could yield if she just took the fucking mask, which I was like, oh no. Like, I legit thought she was going to at some point in this book like take the mask, you know, and use it. Cassian comes in to give her food, then one thing leads to another, and they finally have sex. Chapter 37. But once they're done, Cassian leaves right away, and Nesta's like, the fuck? Like, she thought there'd at least be like cuddling or something. Can I just say I absolutely hate the fact that Sarah used the word sex instead of like vagina or clit. I was just like reading and I'm like, what the fuck? He examined her beautiful sex. What the fuck does that mean? Until I realized, I'm like, oh no. No, she did not just replace the word clit with sex. We get to the scene where Nesta finally uses a sword for the first time. And it's a powerful scene. She is swinging, and with each movement, her blood is roaring, never again. Never again would she be weak. Never again would she be at someone's mercy. Never again would she fail. The other priestesses are watching and they're realizing how much power Nesta is wielding through the sword, and they are no longer afraid of it. So not only did Nesta give herself confidence, she gave the priestesses confidence. Now let's talk about the Valkyrie. The priestess in charge of Gwen is researching the Valkyrie, which in their world is a group of women warriors. So when Nesta, Gwen, and Emery are training, they see themselves as Valkyrie in training and not Ilrain warriors. We're back at the Hewn City, and this is probably dead as my favorite part. Hellion, the High Lord of the Day Court, arrives on a flying Pegasus. Helen is there because Rhysand wants to see if he can figure out what the fuck's going on with the soldiers, why their brains are blank, he wants his input. Hellion takes a look, and they all come to the conclusion that the most likely answer is that Brylin has the crown, which can explain why their brains seem to be in a fog that's under control. Her having the crown is very, 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 very bad. We are at another sex scene. Chapter 41. This one is initiated by Nesta, who asks Cassian if the last time they had sex he regretted it because he immediately left after. And he's like, no, what the fuck? I enjoyed it too much. He doesn't tell Nesta this, but Nesta has made it very, very clear that she just wants it to be sex. And Cassian knew if he stayed, he wouldn't be able to just keep it at sex. Like, he would want to do more. He just wants to be loved. So a little bit early in the book, Cassian takes Nesta to a blacksmith. He takes her there because he wants her to appreciate how a sword is made before she picks up a sword. And she made 3 blades. Fast forward, and the blacksmith has dumped off the weapons to Rhysand, basically saying, fuck this, you keep them. Why? Because those 3 blades that Nesta made are now new troves. The dread troves were forged by the cauldron, and Nesta is cauldron made, and Nesta possesses powers of the cauldron, aka she made new troves. I don't want to talk too much about this, but I do want to mention during that scene, Amren mentions, hey, Rhysand, High King? And there's this whole conversation, Rhysand's like, no, and all this, and there's history that goes into it, but in my head I was like, Rhysand as the High King? I mean, I'm not opposed to it. Like, is that foreshadowing, Sarah, to future books, what might happen? Alright, so Nesta and Cassian are now at the Spring Court meeting with Eris. Can I just say, I hated the fact that Nesta was like, yeah, Elain would love being here at the Spring Court, because I'm like, I already know that people are going to use that quote being like, see, her and Tamlin need to be together. Don't fucking ship Tamlin with anyone, with any of our girls. Just, do y'all forget that he literally sold her? That he literally abused her sister? Anyway, speaking of that tampon, in the middle of Eris, Nesta, and Cassian's conversation, he shows the fuck up. But Nesta gives it to him. She tells Tamlin not to tell anyone they were fucking there, or else she'll rip him a new one. She reminds him of what he did to her and Elain, and all the horrible things he did because he believed Feyre was his property. And before this, Nesta was tearing Eris a new one because he was being disrespectful to Cassian. And so after this, Eris looked at her with respect, because if Tamlin told anyone that Eris, Nesta, and Cassian were meeting in secret, that could blow his cover and get him in trouble with his dad. The next day in training, Cassian tells the girls that he knows they're trying to be Valkyrie because he recognizes them practicing mind stilling. And he recognizes this because he fought alongside a war with the Valkyrie. He speaks about how the Valkyrie were courageous warriors, fierce warriors, and that even though they knew that this battle was going to be a suicide mission, they still went and fought. So back to the new troves that Nesta has made. The Inner Circle decided through a vote to tell Nesta about the new troves, and that she created them, and that she had the ability to create more. The only ones who voted against not telling her were Rhysand and Amren. And no offense to Cassian, this is not his finest moment. He out of nowhere just asked her what she would name a sword if she could, and she caught on that something was off, and then he spilled all the fucking beans and told her that the inner circle knew about the new troves and they even contemplated not telling her at all. A wrong thing to fucking say, especially since what hurt her the most was that Amren was one of the ones who voted against not telling her. Deep down, she hoped that Amren would not hate her for the rest of her life, because during the winter solstice, their friendship broke off, but Amren was still the first one who Nesta trusted in her new life as Fae. And honestly, I understand Amren's decision to vote against her, because we see Nesta contemplating using the mask for her own means. Like, she hasn't demonstrated at all that she would be, like, responsible with the new troves. So what does Nesta do? She tries the steps again. The rage rippling through her allows her to get through all 10,000 steps until she's at the door and she has wide range to Velaris. And so now that she's in Velaris, where does she go? She goes to Amren's apartment. And oh my god, I did not like Nesta in this moment. She is obviously so blind by her own trauma, and she accuses Amren of choosing Feyre. And Amren just rips her apart. Amren tells her that Nesta is so spoiled for thinking that her wanting to help her and realizing Feyre may be right in the approach on how to help her was somehow Amren choosing Feyre. And then Amren tells her that she rejected her responsibility of learning how to use her powers and that she needs to self-reflect. And that she is blind for seeing Feyre as anything other than a sister who loves her so much that she is willing to do anything to help her. And that if she's blind to all of that, then no way in hell can she be trusted with the weapons. Nesta in this moment sees herself no better than Tamlin and that she does not deserve Feyre's love. During their verbal fight, Amren's boyfriend takes the fuck off and goes to get help. So he went to Feyre. So now Feyre is there at the apartment. And oh my god, this is the part where I just... Nesta, in her anger, tells Feyre that her and her baby are gonna die during labor. And she tells her that Rhysand ordered them all not to tell her. And when Feyre starts crying, something cracks in Nesta and she realizes she has gone too far and she runs out of the apartment. Cassian realizes that Nesta is no longer at the house, so he goes searching for her, and the first place he goes is the river house. And oh boy, did he choose wrong. Rhysand tells Cassian in a voice that, and I quote, said was like hell embodied, tells Cassian to get Nesta the fuck out of the city before he kills her. The drama! Cassian finds Nesta and flies her to the Sleeping Mountains. Nesta is completely shut off and believes she has done something unforgivable and just wishes Cassian would have just left her in the city so Rhysand could have killed her. At their first night camping out, Feyre mind speaks to Cassian that Rhys overreacted and that she forgives Nesta and tells Cassian to look after her. Feyre is too good of a person, oh my god. Cause I sure as hell would not be that forgiving. That's for damn sure. Cassian subconsciously chose the Sleeping Mountains because there was once a lake that was used to heal both the body and the soul that's in the mountains. And they're walking to the lake, which is a few days trip. Cassian knows that no one but Nesta herself can save her, and he's hoping that this will help. During this whole trip, Nesta doesn't say anything, but her thoughts are so depressing. She thinks she was born wrong, that she's not a good person, that everyone is against her. She keeps comparing herself to a beast like Tamlin, but the thought that makes her just shatter is the thought of if she is worth even being counted. And as they make it to the lake, she determines in herself that she is not worth being counted. And she just crumples down to the ground and starts sobbing. We finally get to a very pivotal moment in Nesta's character growth. She is finally openly admitting to herself and to Cassian about everything. She's finally voicing her fears and why she acts the way she does and how she feels. And Cassian is holding her while she is just pouring her sorrow out. She feels guilty about not saving both of her sisters. She admits that she should have found a way before to save them, but she was just so angry at her father and was willing to let them starve in order to prove to her father that he was an awful father. And she hates every part of herself that makes her anger unleash like that, but that she can't help it, that it's a barrier that she can't let down. And then she talks about how she can't bear to keep rehearing the snapping of her father's neck. Not only hearing it, she hates having to see it in her flashbacks. And she tells Cassian that her father's last words to her was that he loved her. And she doesn't believe that she deserves anything, but especially she doesn't believe that she deserves love. Cassian listens to everything, and in the end, he tells her she will get through it. That her tears are proof that she cares and she is not too far off. And that it is not too late for her. That this road is going to be rough, but she will make it to the other side. That she deserves happiness. And in this moment, Cassian realizes why Nesta flinches every time she's near a fire. Because she's rehearing her father's neck being snapped. After a little moment, Cassian has her get up and gives her his sword and tells her to do a sword movement. Each movement is perfect, and when she's done, there is light shining in her eyes. They stay another 2 days at the lake, training with the sword and having lots of sex. Sarah made sure to make it a point that we knew that they were having lots of sex while they were at the lake. Chapter 51. Now we're back at the house, training with the other girls. And we learned that one of the Valkyries' tests for whether your training is complete or not is being able to cut a ribbon with your sword. And the girls find out real quickly that that ain't an easy thing to do. Cassian teases them and literally takes his sword and cuts the ribbon clean in half. And in response to that teasing that Cassian did, Nesta drags him to his bedroom where they have another intense sex scene. Chapter 51. But he's still immediately leaving after. Like, cuddle for fuck's sake. Nesta is slowly starting the healing process, and she asks Gwen, who mentioned a little while ago in the book that the priestesses' service have really beautiful music, if she can join so she can listen to the music. Nesta confides in Gwen that she believes she is now grateful and glad for what Feyre did to help her. That she does not miss the drinking or the parties, but she does miss the music. Of course, Gwen says yes and tells her that she is welcome to join whenever. So we're at the service in the evening and it just sounds so fucking peaceful. But the music, from the description, the music sounds so beautiful and the voices of the priestess fill the space as though they were one voice. And Gwen's voice is just mwah. Her voice is full of sunshine and joy and determination, and her voice seemed to be calling to Nesta. Gwen has a gift. The music is so goddamn good that it puts Nesta in a trance. With her own bones and the stone of the mountain surrounding them, she was able to scry. And when she scried, she found the third trove, the harp. Unfortunately, the harp is in the prison, you know, where the Bone Craver and other ancient creatures are locked up. Were locked up. Bone Craver's dead. But yeah, that terrifying place. Oh yeah, also, she woke up the harp. So who knows what type of havoc it has already caused. So now Nesta and Cassian are at the prison, and Nesta has her maid sword that Rhysand gave her so that she can have it while she's in there for protection. So they go to the end of the prison, and Nesta just fucking walks right through a wall. And then Cassian follows her, and now they're in another hallway, a part of the prison that Cassian wasn't aware was there. They come to a round chamber full of symbols carved into the floor, and in the center of the chamber is the harp. The wards around the harp do not let Cassian go through, but allows Nesta to go through. Probably because she's Cauldron Maid. So she goes to the harp and she fucking touches it. When Nesta touches the harp shows Nesta the memories of the last time it was used. And it seemed like whoever used it last used it to trap their enemies into the stone. But then after it shows her the memories, the harp makes a connection between Nesta and Brylan. And Brylan is wearing the motherfucking crown. And they are both actually seeing each other. This isn't a vision. It's none of that. They are physically able to see each other. In order to free herself from this so that Brylan can no longer see her, she asks the harp to help her. And the harp tells her to pluck the first string. So she does, and it works. It may have worked a little bit too well. So Casey and Nesta, they're walking back out of the prison, you know, getting the fuck out of there. Because Brylan knows where they're at, so they're like, oh, gotta dip. But on their way up, the cell door of Lanthai's is fucking open. So earlier in the book, Cassian mentions Lanthai, who is a fucking terrifying and powerful, unkillable creature. Lanthai can turn into the wind and rip the motherfucking air from your lungs. He can turn into rain and drown you, etc. Terrifying shit. And last time, Cassian was only able to trap him out of luck. When Nesta ordered the harp to let her go and plucked the first string, it also released the wards around Lanthus's cell. Cassian tells her to run, and she does, but she comes back for him by transporting using the harp's magic. She made Lanthus scared with her maid sword because that sword can actually do him fucking damage. Lanthus tries to trick her by showing her glimpses of the possible future of them together. A future where she is powerful and alongside him ruling over everything. But she snaps out of it when she glimpses his obvious greed. Cassian throws a dagger and it goes into his chest. Nesta leaps and slices him up with her sword, leaving just his fucking head unattached from his body. She killed an unkillable. Then they hear the footsteps of the Autumn Court soldiers sent by Brylan, and she uses the harp to transport her and Cassian out of there. Nesta transports them to the river house, and they are safe. While Rhysand is patching up Cassian, Nesta and Feyre have a mini conversation via mind talk. Nesta apologizes to Feyre for what she said at Amren's apartment, and Feyre forgives her. In the same scene, they're discussing what to do now and how to prepare for a possible war. They know Brylan has the crown, and they can't go after her because then she'll just control them. But what they can do is secure their alliances. And Rhysand has an idea to use Nesta's dance skills to seduce Eris and to show him what he has to benefit by keeping loyal to their alliance. Because right now he's being a little chicken shit ever since Tamlin spotted them. And earlier in the book, Elaine tells them of Nesta's amazing dancing skills. The dancing skills that once won her the hand of a duke after one single waltz. But Nesta agrees to dance with Eris. Also in the same scene, Nesta gives Rhysand back her maid sword, saying she no longer wants it because she is no longer interested in death. And keep in mind, her power is death. And we're shown in a subtle way that Nesta isn't really interested in her power. One of the most heartwarming scenes in the book. When the house finally shows Nesta its heart. Like, literally shows Nesta its heart. Y'all remember that pit in the library? Remember how Nesta earlier in the book said she felt the darkness down in the pit and it felt super old? That darkness is the house's heart. And it trusted Nesta enough to show her. And the house gave her a solstice gift. I love the relationship between the house and Nesta. So now we're at the party in the Court of Nightmares to celebrate the winter solstice. This whole party scene was just fabulous. First off, Feyre and Rhysand make a fucking entrance. Dark power rumbles through the mountain to warn of their approach. And there are gasps when they appear because Feyre wore the same type of dress she wore the first time she was there. Very revealing, very sexy, but also very, very showing how fucking pregnant she is. And one of the main purposes of that night was to show the world that she was pregnant. Now comes the really stunning part of the scene. Nesta's dancing. She is amazing. She is waltzing beautifully and Eris is easily keeping up with her. And at the climax of the song, she starts spinning solo on one foot. The way that Sarah describes it, it sounds like she was doing pirouettes. And seeing her dance and the whole number was just stunning because it looked like she was coming alive again. Needless to say, she easily won Eris over. She won him over a little bit too much because immediately after their dance, Eris goes to Rhysand and tells him that he wants Nesta as his wife. Cassian gets a little jealous and cuts in, and now Nesta and him are dancing. And my heart stopped because this is the first time Nesta let her joy and emotions toward Cassian show without hiding it, and she's just smiling so brightly. So we finally learn what was in that fucking box. The box that was Nesta's winter solstice gift last year during A Court of Frost and Starlight, which she refused, and then Cassian chucked into the fucking river. That box. In the box was one of the first ever printed books in existence. And it took him months to track it down. He got it for her because he knew Nesta loved books and... But this winter solstice, Cassian got Nesta a silver ball the size of an egg, and it's called a symphonia. Basically, it traps music inside of it and plays it back like a music box. He literally went to her favorite taverns, had the musicians play the songs, went back to where the waltz were, and had those musicians perform the waltz again. He went through so much to make this present so special for her. But she can't accept the gift. God fucking damn it. But she finally admits to Cassian why she never allowed herself to go further than sex with him, and it's because she's afraid of losing him. She's afraid of him being taken away from her. She's afraid of him dying. But they finally talk, and they both say to each other that they are the only ones for each other. And I was so happy because now they're finally together. Like, for fuck's sake, like, geez, took us a long goddamn time to get here. Immediately after they're having sex, Chapter 58. But this time it's different. This time they have admitted their feelings for each other. And Sarah describes it as though their souls are golden threads from a harp, and that it was music between their souls, and that Cassian was her melody. And they finally cuddle! So Cass has to go off to his annual snowball fight with the boys, but he doesn't return for 3 days. So Nesta invites Gwen and Emery over to the house for a girls' night. When I tell you, this is one of my favorite scenes. So Nesta tells Gwen and Emery that the house will literally get them anything they ask for. And they test that out. They definitely do. Like 2 hours later, all 3 of them are like fully clothed in their own separate bathtubs filled with bubbles. And in these fucking bubbles, there are birds, like flying little birds in them. And then in like a corner, there's a miniature Pegasus grazing on some grass. And there's like a cake taller than Cassian with 1,000 fucking candles on it, and so much more. And keep in mind, this is all in the private library in the house. But the best and cutest part of this girls' night was when they made friendship bracelets, and each bracelet had one charm on them. And Nesta makes a wish over the bracelets for them, saying she wishes for all of them to have the courage to go out into the world when they're ready, and that they will always be able to find their way back to each other. And Nesta swore the charms glowed faintly. All 3 girls have now cut the ribbon, Valkyrie shit, but now they're working on an obstacle course that is hard as shit. Like, it legit takes them 2 months to tackle before they complete it. They find out that the obstacle course was the Blood Right qualifier, so they passed. Also, Lord Devlon was watching, one of the Ilrain generals, one of the fucking assholes. I fucking hate him. Sexist motherfucker was watching, and Cassian and Azriel wanted him to be there so that he and anyone he fucking told would know that the 3 girls were just as talented as any other Ilrain unit. But Cassian assures the girls, especially Emery, that they do not need to enter the Blood Right. Now only one test remains for Nesta. One that she put on herself, the stairs. While she's descending the stairs, she is thinking about how happy she is to be alive, and she's just seeing all of her progress, and she's seeing the person who she's becoming. She makes it to the bottom for the first time that counts, and the lure of the vibrant city is no longer luring to her, not as much as Cassian waiting for at the top is. And I was just so proud for her because she conquered this, especially because in the beginning she used the stairs to try to get back to the city where she could drink and party and just forget about all of her problems. So just seeing her, this progress, it just made me really happy. Immediately after she has climbed back up the stairs, Cassian carries her to the top of the house where the Starlight party has started already. The year before, she was so drunk she didn't remember anything. But this year she's not, and she's just seen the beauty of everything. The stars, she's so grateful to be alive that she's crying in joy and she's laughing. and Amren comes up behind her and tells her she never thought she'd hear a laugh from her again. Nesta literally drops to her knees and apologizes to Amren. Amren forgives her and tells her all the good she did, especially with the house which she brought to life. And they're friends again. We need to talk about Aline's appearance. Sarah did confirm this in Alive, by the way. A rare red star blasted across the sky, and most viewed it as an ill omen. Rhysand was rattled by this. Of course the fuck he was rattled by it. That red star was Aline falling through the worlds, and Rhysand instinctively shot power out to slow her fall. When I tell you I might have cried in that moment, because the Throne of Glass series is my favorite series that Sarah has written. It's only like one goddamn sentence, but I was like, time out, cut the tapes, oh my god. Like, I really want to know what the fuck was going through Rhysand's mind, because this is like Nesta and Cassian's point of view, so we don't know what he was thinking. My heart really hurt at this next part. Nesta gets a little shocked with being out in public with Cassian and publicly showing affection. And she's realizing that one day she'll have to leave the house, and there's a possibility that she can relapse and all of her progress just go to shit, and she's overthinking all of it. And she tries to deflect Cassian by saying with Rhys and Feyre it's different because they're mates, and oh boy, Cassian gets very defensive and basically tells her that they are mates, but Nesta will not accept it. She doesn't want to be mates because that would erase the last of her humanity, because only Fays can be mates. Cassian did not choose his words correctly, and basically Nesta calls in the bargain and orders him to leave before she can say anything that she truly regrets. I was so beyond fucking frustrated. But Mor appears, most likely sent by Cassian, and she takes her to Emery's shop/house. And Nesta just bursts and tells Emery everything that just happened between her and Cassian. And an hour later, Gwen is there. So Nesta has her two friends with her, and she's calming down and she's relaxing, and she was able to talk it all out, and she feels safe in her friend's company. As she's going to bed, Nesta tells herself that she will apologize to Cassian in the morning and that their new life will begin. And I was so happy. And that happiness was immediately fucking shattered. That night, while all three girls were sleeping, Ilrain males kidnapped them from their beds and put them in the fucking Bloodright. The males did this as a message to the girls and to Cassian and Azriel to make them regret for even thinking that they were warriors and for defying the Ilrain hierarchies. And remember all those rules I talked about earlier in the video of the Bloodright? So basically, Cassian and the Inner Circle can't do jack shit. On top of all this, Eris gets captured by Braylon, and Az and Cassian need to go rescue him. But Cassian doesn't want to go because his mate's now in the right, where she can be sexually assaulted and killed, so he tells Rhysand to go. And this is when Rhysand and Feyre drop the bomb. Remember in the third book, I believe, that bargain that Feyre and Rhysand made out of love, that if one of them dies, so will the other. Yeah, it's biting them in the ass right now. I deadass knew when I read the third book that this would somehow come back and just bite them so hard in the ass. Amren is fucking pissed. And Azriel and Cassian are horrified, because if Rhysand dies on the mission, so does Feyre and the baby. But if Feyre dies during childbirth, so does Rhysand. So it's a lose-lose goddamn situation. So we're back at the Bloodright, and Nesta has just woke up before the other males. But soon one wakes up and tries to kill her. Instead, she kills him, and she takes his clothes and puts them on, because she was only in her nightgown. She goes searching for Gwen and Emery when her charm starts to glow. The charm is a beacon that leads to her friends. When Nesta made a wish over the friendship bracelets, she made them into beacons with her power, just like she did the three blades. Nesta finally finds Emery, but Emery is passed out, is across the river, caught on a fallen tree, and that tree is right next to the waterfall. Nesta strips naked, swims from rock to rock across the river to Emery, uses a bow that she took from one of the males to hold them both into place while she swims back across the river. They run into an Ilrain named Balthasar, and he offers Nesta to come into a cave for the night so her and Emery, who's still passed out, won't die from the monsters that roam at night. Nesta, after making a bargain with him so he can't hurt her or Emery, agrees and he helps them into the cave. I liked him. We only see him for like 2 pages, but I liked him. He had no lust. He didn't want to hurt them. He legit knew that if he hurt Feyre's sister, that she would not be forgiving, so he wasn't playing around. Emery wakes up and she tells Nesta how she got knocked out. So now Nesta and Emery are trying to find Gwen, but instead they run into Emery's complete dick of a cousin, Bellius, who takes them as captives. Weapons aren't allowed in the Rite, yet there were weapons planted there. Bellius kind of let it slip that Brylan could have had a hand in placing those illegal weapons there. Literally at that moment, I was like, oh boy, Brylan probably put those weapons in there so that they could fucking kill Nesta. Then a monster that looks like a cat / a serpent attacks, and it was Gwen's brilliant strategy. Gwen is finally here, and she led the monster to the males, holding Nesta and Emery captive, and all 3 of them escape. Now it's day 4 of the Rite, and the girls need to make it to this bridge first before anyone else, because whoever gets there first will destroy the bridge, and it will prevent them from further advancing to the sacred mountain of Ramel. There are males that try to get to the bridge, but like badasses, Nesta and her girls kill them. But of course, then there are other males that are advancing toward the bridge, and the girls run for the bridge right as the males run for the bridge. Nesta and Emery make it to the bridge, but Gwen gets shot in the leg. Nesta has Emery tie one end of a rope to a tree, then they tie themselves around it, and then Nesta ties the other end of the string on a bow and arrow, shoots it to Gwen's feet. Gwen picks it up and holds onto it, and then Nesta cuts the bridge. The girls are dangling in the air, but are able to pull each other up and make it to the other side, while the males plummet into the riverbed. The girls are on foot to Ramel, and they're deciding if they should even try to climb it, because all of them are just in a wreck, destroyed. And soon the conversation leads to a very raw and emotional conversation where the girls each tell each other of their traumas. Gwen tells them how her temple was raided by Hybern soldiers and how they slaughtered the woman, and that the commander beheaded her twin sister in front of her, all because Gwen would not tell them where the children were, which she helped escape. The commander raped her and had his other soldiers continue to rape her until she told them where the children were. And it didn't stop until Asriel got there and slaughtered all the soldiers. And that's how she ended up at the library. Emery tells them how her father would physically beat her and would beat her mom. Her father beated her mother so badly that she ended up dying, and she still feels his fist on her and all the physical abuse she endured. Nesta tells them why she was sent to the House of Wind, and she tells them about her father and the cauldron and all of it. After this really intense conversation, they all agree that they want to win the Rite, to prove to themselves that they can do it. Their goal is now to touch the stone on top of Ramel and win the whole goddamn thing. So the girls are making it up the mountain when they spot males a good ways back, but closing in. And of course, one of them is Bellius. Nesta carries Gwen on her back, and they begin to climb up faster. Those 10,000 steps at the house are really coming into good use right now. After some time, Nesta realizes that she cannot continue to carry Gwen. She does not have the strength, and that they won't make it to the top before the end of the Rite or before the males catch up to them. Both Emery and Gwen are injured and cannot survive a fight, so Nesta tells them to go to the summit and that she'll buy them time to make it. Gwen isn't having it, so Nesta pinches the right spot on Gwen's neck, and now Gwen is unconscious. Emery carries Gwen, and Nesta stays to fight off the males that are fast approaching. During all this, Asriel and Cassian are near Brylan's castle. They finally find Eris and corner him, and it turns out Eris is under Brylan's control, and that she is there next to Eris under her hooded cloak, or so we think. She draws back her hood, and nothing's fucking there. And the sorcerer Koshi's voice says it was magic. So where the actual fuck is Vrylin then? Koshki was a distraction, and Azriel sensed it, told Cassian to run, grabbed Eris and shot to the sky. But when Cassian tries to fly away, he can't. And guess who emerges behind the motherfucking trees? Vrylin, wearing the fucking crown. Koshki tells her that she has plenty of time before dawn, and Vrylin tells the sorcerer to transport them. And at that moment, I was like, shit. She's taking Cassian to the right to most likely kill Nesta. So we're back at the right, and Bellius has made it to Nesta. A flutter of light from the summit washes over them, signaling that Emery and Gwen made it and won the right. But this is what Bellius wanted, and he attacks Nesta. They are brutally fighting one another. And during the fight, she says, "I know I can beat you because my mate taught me well." She finally says it. She finally admits that they're mates. She finally says it out loud. They're fighting, but Bellius overpowers her and is about to slit her throat. But then thunder and lightning crack, and the entire mountain shakes, and Cassian is there, and he stabs him in the back. They hug, and Cassian tells her, "And now I'm gonna slit your pretty little throat." And who the fuck is with them? Who the fuck is also there with them? Vrylin wearing the motherfucking crown. Vrylin controlling Cassian. Vrylin tells Nesta to call the other two troves to her and give those troves to her. Vrylin says if she does not do so, she will order Cassian to kill her, which would cause Cassian the most pain he will probably ever experience. Nesta refuses to call the troves to her, so Vrylin orders Cassian to kill. Just kill. That's all she says. Kill. So Cassian turns the knife on himself. And just as he does so, dawn breaks, marking the end of the rite, and Nesta's powers return. And holy fucking shit, Nesta's full powers unleash. Her powers causes avalanches to erupt and trees to burst all around her. In distant seas, she's causing tsunamis. And in fucking Valaris, she caused buildings to shake and glass to shatter. Nesta is unleashing her magic, and it is raging against Vrylin. And Brylin's old body starts to turn young again. And then it turns to fucking ash, leaving only the crown. Nesta fucking erased Vrylin from existence. She unmade her. Nesta races to Cassian and finds that he never stabbed himself. They are holding each other's faces when Nesta tells him that he is her mate. Ah, my heart. And then they kiss, and my heart was just full of joy, and that joy was squashed real fucking soon, because Az and Mor show up and tell them that Feyre is bleeding and is going into labor months before she is due. Feyre is dying, and the baby is dying because the baby is too small. They had to cut open Feyre to get the baby out, and the baby made no sound when it emerged. Rhysand is crying, and then he starts screaming, and then he's lunging for Feyre, but then the world slows and it goes silent. Death lurked near Feyre, and Nesta opened a place in her soul that she had just tore free earlier at the rite. All of a sudden, Nesta is wearing the mask and the crown and holding the harp, and she plucks the 26th string. The 26th string was time. Nesta strokes Feyre's cold hand and tells Feyre that she loves her. And it's the first time Nesta has ever spoken those words out loud to anyone before. Nesta uses time to make a bargain with the cauldron. A bargain where she gives all of her power back if the cauldron shows her how to save Feyre, the baby, and Rhysand. Light flows from Nesta's body to Feyre and the baby, and she saves them. Rhysand falls to his knees and thanks Nesta, and Nesta drops down to him and gives him a hug, and she's hugging him tightly, and oh my god, that was so emotional. And it's a little baby boy, and they named it Nyx. In the Barnes & Noble bonus chapter with Feyre and Rhysand, it basically shows how they chose the name, and they chose to name him after the goddess of night. We also learn in Feyre and Rhysand's bonus chapter is that Feyre is teaching art to children, which I thought was absolutely fucking adorable. Sarah also gives us the scene where they find out that she's pregnant, and it's when Rhysand goes to her art studio and he just falls to his knees, and Feyre's like, what the fuck just happened? It's because Rhysand was able to smell her and he smelt the scent of the baby, which was so cute. In the bonus chapter, there is a sex scene between Feyre and Rhysand, but it's not as graphic or as detailed as Cassian and Nesta's in the book. Nesta tells Cassian that she believes a little bit of her power still remains, and that she altered her body so that she can one day give birth to a baby with wings. Oh my god! So now we're at the end of the book, and Rhysand is making and paying for all of the arrangements for Nesta and Cassian's mating ceremony. Rhysand even gave Nesta and Cassian the House of Wind. Now all three sisters are going to their father's grave because Feyre wanted to show her father her new baby. Nesta is finally at his grave by herself, and she thanks him for all that he did for her. And then Cassian, like a busybody he is flying overhead to make sure that she's safe. And in that moment, she is just so full of life and joy. And then Nesta hurries down the hill where her sisters are waiting for her. And that's how the book ends. Let's talk about Asriel's bonus chapter before I give my opinions. So Asriel's bonus chapter, basically what happens, we see an interaction where Asriel and Elain almost kiss, but then Rhysand comes in and stops it. And Asriel has to take his gift back that he gave to Elain, which is a little necklace. Rhysand basically tells Asriel, do you want a fucking war to start? You know, her goddamn mate is here. Her mate is part of the Autumn Court. We already have rocky ties with them. Get your shit together. And I know a lot of people were very mad at Rhysand for doing that. But honestly, I understood where he was coming from. He's the leader of a court. His first priority is to protect the people in his court. And one way of doing that, you might be unaware, is preventing a fucking war. So I thought Rhysand was in the right. But in that bonus chapter, we also see that Asriel sexually thinks about Elain all the time. When he's masturbating, he thinks about her. And a lot of people found that creepy. I was like, it just confirms that he's a freak. Because like Sarah confirmed that he's a freak in the sheets. And I'm like, perfect, I love to see it. And this whole scene happened after the Inner Circle's little party to celebrate the winter solstice. And so Asriel flies back to the House of Wind, to the training ring, and he doesn't know that Gwen's there. His shadows did not tell him that Gwen was there. And they talk, they interact, it's, you know, it's normal. But fucking then, it explains how like his shadows sang to her and didn't hide from her. And his shadows are like obviously curious about her, and they peer at her and she smiles at them, and they dance under her breath, which is different to how his shadows react when he's around Elain, which is they literally run away from her. And as he's leaving the roof, her beautiful singing followed him, and his shadows answered back. And he ended up going down to the library and giving the necklace to Clotho, telling her to give it to Gwen, but to not tell Gwen who gave her the present. And I personally don't care if you ship Gwen and Asriel or Elain and Asriel. I think we can all agree that that necklace is gonna cause some fucking drama. Like, cause Elain saw the necklace, Asriel put it on her neck. Like, there was a whole thing where like, he touched her neck and like, he was like hard, you know? So she knows what the necklace looks like. And then she's gonna see Gwen wearing it. It's gonna be like a, like, I hope Sarah like draw some like telenovela fucking shit out of that, like that. But yeah, that's the bonus scene. So it's very, very clear to assume that the next book is gonna be centered around Elain. Some people said Asriel, but I don't think that's it, because when has Sarah ever written a book where the main character is the male? Never. And Feyre and Nesta already have their books, so it's fair to say that Elain's gonna get a book too. So I believe that the next book is gonna be about Elain, and if I hear any of y'all ship Elain and Tamlin, I'm literally gonna throw the fuck up. Like, literally anyone else, like anyone goddamn else but Tamlin or Eris. Like don't do that shit. Personally, I really like the ship between Gwen and Asriel, but one of my friends pointed this out to me and I understand it and it makes sense. I don't believe it will be realistic for Gwen and Asriel to get together unless the next book takes place a year or two from where Court of Silver Flames leaves off. Because remember Gwen's past, she's still slowly emerging herself into the world. The only time she's fucking left the library was to go to Emery's house and when she was kidnapped for the blood rite. So I did think that was a really good point, that like I don't think Gwen's gonna want to be in a relationship like that, especially since she does have a lot of healing to do and she needs to take her time, and I would not want her to rush into a relationship without being fully healed. And then Elaine, I don't really have any opinions on her. We don't know her enough for me to have opinions on her. Everyone says she's boring, but I bet she's like, her mind's like just like clicking, you know, there's something going on there. She's just quiet. But we're not going to know until we get her book, you know what I mean? So I don't really have an opinion on her because we don't know her, you know what I mean? I am very, very curious though, why she hasn't rejected the mating bond with Lucien. And here's what I think. Come in, guys. I think that like she told Rhysand that she wants to be a part of the court, that she wants to help, and that Rhysand probably told her, cool, don't break off the mating bond. We need that alliance. We need Lucien's connections. You know what I mean? That's what I'm thinking. Because it's obvious that, like, she ain't into him, right? And I was, like, thinking, I'm like, why the hell has she, like, not just, like, rejected it? So that's where my mind is. I could be wrong, but, like, that's what I'm thinking. All of that being said, people have used those points and the fact that, especially during like training, Asriel and Gwen would like be like sneaking looks at each other, you know, just like subtly throughout, that these are possible signs that Asriel and Gwen are mates. But to look at the other side with Elaine, Sarah J. Maas has mentioned many times that she believes in happy endings and she believes in coincidences. And I know a lot of people were like, well, that'd be just too much of a coincidence if all three of the sisters ended up with all three of the brothers. But like, that would fit with like what Sarah likes and what Sarah would write. Also, Asriel says in his bonus chapter, what if the Cauldron made a mistake? And you know, it could have very well made a mistake. We don't know. We don't know what Sarah has planned for us. But these are just like the sides that we're seeing. Also, another point that people bring up for the people who like to ship Elaine with Asriel is that mating bonds don't mean that it will actually be a good relationship. It just means that the pairing will make a powerful offsprings. And I did really feel bad for Asriel during this, because he's just like pouring his heart out to Rhysand, being like, it's not fair. How come you and Cassian get to be mates with two of the sisters, but I don't? Some people actually really didn't like him after his bonus chapter because they believed he was being very possessive of Elaine, which I can see that point. I can clearly see that point. But I think he didn't mean it that way. I think he was just really, really hurt and he didn't know what else to say. Yeah, but I don't really care, you know, who ends up with who, you know, in terms of like Elaine, Asriel, and Gwen. The only ship I fucking care about, and the only ship that you should care about, is Emery and Mor. In the book where like Emery sees Mor and says out loud, oh my gosh, I forgot how beautiful she was, and she blushes. Please, Sarah. Emery and Mor, like, Emery was blushing when she saw Mor, like, that is the only ship I care about, and the only goddamn ship you should care about and be rooting. Personally, my thoughts on the book, I really enjoyed it. I, going into this book, wasn't the biggest fan of Nesta. I didn't hate her, but I definitely wasn't like a big fan of her. I also didn't find her very interesting. I did believe the ending was very fucking rushed, like insanely rushed, where I'm like, stuff's falling together a little bit too conveniently, you know what I mean? Especially the blood rite and Cassian not stabbing himself and her powers being able to flare out. For some reason, I thought that the blood rite, or at least like the battle between Nesta and Brylan, or just like Nesta's powers coming about, was gonna take a little longer than 2 paragraphs. Like literally it's 2 fucking paragraphs where Nesta's powers come out, and unmade Brylan. And then the end with Feyre and the baby and Nesta saving it. I don't know. I felt like that was a little bit too convenient that she was able to have a bargain with the cauldron. That's incorrect. That's not the right way to put it. I thought it happened too quickly. Like literally like 2 pages, like we're in and out, boom, saved. I mean, I am happy. I am very, very happy that the baby survived, that Feyre survived, that Rhysand is still alive. But it did feel very, very rushed compared to the rest of the book that had more of like a, not a slower pace, but more of a steady pace, whereas the end was just like, I didn't mind that the ending was very, very happy. It felt kind of good because Nesta's story was a tough one, and it was just nice to see Nesta having a happy ending. One thing I am pretty disappointed about, though, that I was hoping we would get in this book was for Feyre and Nesta to have a heart-to-heart conversation, because we don't get that. We get short little conversations. We get Feyre apologizing right away. We never get them talking where they actually talk about all the shit that happened between them. Like, we never get that. I expected that to happen, but we don't, and it feels a little like cheap shotted, because I'm like, I don't believe that like Feyre and Nesta are just okay now. You know, they went through so much shit. They have so much history together. I don't know. Hopefully maybe Sarah has a future plan or a future conversation between them in her coming books. But yeah, it was sad that that necessary conversation was not in the book. Can I just say, I legit thought that like Tamlin was gonna fucking kill Feyre when he found out she was pregnant. Like, dead as, I'm like, because they talk about how off the rockers he is, and he hasn't been out of his beast form in a long ass time, and that he's like super depressed. And I was like, oh my god, he's gonna try to kill Feyre. Oh my god. It didn't happen, but I was like expecting the drama. I do think Tamlin is going to be prevalent in the next book, because I believe he will be a good antagonist, because he's a little bitch and he makes you mad. And unfortunately, that's what a good antagonist is. So I'll be honest, after reading this book and I just sat down and I thought about it, I was pretty fucking pissed that Nesta lost all of her powers. Like, let me tell you, one of the tropes that I absolutely hate the most is when the main character, this all-powerful being, loses their power at the end. And it's usually always like the female character, which pisses me off even more. But I saw a lot of people in the book community saying that Nesta losing her powers was okay and justified because Nesta never wanted her powers to begin with. Which is true, you do see it prevalently throughout the book and even in the original trilogy that she does not want her powers. One of the points that I mentioned in this video is when she gives back the maid sword to Rhysand because she doesn't want it anymore. She does not want to be associated with death. So in that regard, I guess I'm not that mad about it because it's what she would have wanted because she didn't want her powers to begin with. So, but I was still pissed. I was still fucking pissed. Unfortunately, we're not gonna get another ACOTAR book until at least 2 years. So at most it could be longer, but at least Sarah said 2 years. Also, I know I didn't talk a lot about it, but I am very, very curious to see if this High King situation could possibly be hinting at what could happen in the next books, because I am personally A-O-fucking-K with Rhysand being the High King and then Feyre being the High Queen. Yes, I can see it and I would love it and I would not complain. Overall, this book was very, very different compared to the other 3, besides the fact that it's not from Feyre's point of view and it's no longer in first person, it's now in third person and it followed Nesta, but that it was a very character-driven book. But I believe it needed to be that way because it is a story about Nesta healing from her trauma and working through everything. So I believe Sarah choosing for it to be a character-driven plot was very smart. And personally, this book took me so long to read. I usually finish Sarah's books within like a day or 2. This book took me like a week. It's the longest I've ever taken to read a Sarah book, and it's because it reminded me a lot of some of my own personal past and stuff, and like I would literally be reading, get a flashback, and just close the book. I'm like, yeah, not right now, can't deal with this. In the end, I am very happy with how Sarah portrayed PTSD, how respectful she was in portraying it, and just showing all sides of Nesta, and us really being able to understand who she is and go on this journey with her. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video and you want to see more, like this video and hit that subscribe button. And if you want to see more of my beautiful face, all my social medias are linked down below. Bye! God, I fucking mispronounced so many goddamn names. Oh my god. Why did I film at 2 in the morning? Basically what happens is they tell Illyraine. Illyraine.